Thank you for coming to this lecture first, and I'm very, very happy and very grateful to Professor Pistoja for this invitation. It's a very exhilarating moment. Why? Because it's the first time I'm really presenting to public this project, which is more than a project, because actually the book, the draft, it's finished and it's been accepted with several chapters and a table of content to nice collection in real publishers, which are very, very well-known scholarship publisher. And it was not so easy because, as Professor Pistoja told you, I was not a dentist at all. That's why you have these vignettes. You can set a small stamp on the right-hand side down. It's a divination sign from Benin. And this sign is one of the signs that you can find in the Purgatorio, which seems pretty unlikely to happen, but it happened. And one of the reasons I'm here to talk about that is because there's like a bridge between African divination and the core of one of the major European works in history, literary work. As you know, the Divine Comedy, which is actually the original name, as you know, is the Commedia. Okay, that's it. Okay, so very briefly, what I've done in the past is relevant to what I will talk about today, but very briefly, my first works were on Cuba, the African religions in Cuba, especially Santeria. Then I moved to New Orleans, working on the African American spiritual church in New Orleans. I also was the commissaire of the exhibition in Paris, the Brésil, l'héritage africain, and I did some fieldwork in Africa. And for like more than 10 years now, I've been working in Porto Novo in Benin. Okay, so my background is anthropology of religion, especially divination. Okay, I'm very much focused on divination, African divination, but not only in Africa, also from what I've been studying in Africa and Cuba, the what is called the IFA divination system. I moved, would say backwards, you can say that in the past, to look at a system which shares exactly the same figures as IFA divination in Africa. So it's not by chance. Why? They share those figures. They share those figures because they have a common origin. The common origin is Arabic and Berber geomancy in North Africa. Probably around the 11th, 12th century. It was the first manuscript we have is dated 1140. The author is Hugo de Santalla in Spain, and in his manuscript, 12th century, he presents all the system of geomancy. Once again, the same one as the one which is used right now in Africa, in Cuba, and in other parts of the world. Okay. I published in 2021 a paper that maybe you would be interested in, which is precisely the symbolic commonalities between medieval geomancy and IFA divination. And I found out that the planet Venus corresponds to a figure in both systems, okay? And in the Arabic system also. So you have the Arabic and Berber North Africa system, which is very, very likely to be the first one. Then translated to Latin in the 12th century, but also moving down south to sub-Saharan Africa. Okay, widespread in all the regions I'm talking about. absolutely everywhere. And in Europe, you can't imagine the number of manuscripts that there was in the 12th, 13th, and 14th century, everywhere. Translated from Latin to Anglo-Normand, to Italian, to German, to English. Chaucer mentions the system, for instance. Okay? Rabelais in France mentions the system too. So it's not like I'm discovering that Dante used it. Actually, other authors of the Middle Ages, the same period, used it, but they probably did not used it as Dante did. Okay, so my last book is on part of it is about just what I'm talking about, l'oracle et le temps, but I can't talk about that today. If you are interested, come to the Hutchins Research Center on May 7th, and that will be another part of my research, especially the book published in 24. Okay. So where does my inspiration comes from? First, Professor Gates' major book, 1989. It's a book which is a link between literary critic and anthropology of religion. And it's a major book which had a strong influence on my research, where Professor Gates shows how a series of myths linked to a trickster god has influenced African-American literature, especially Zora Neale Hurston, for instance. And the idea is that there's a genetic principle, not genetic biological, okay? Genetic because it creates a pattern. And this pattern, in the case of the signifying monkey, is the capacity of African Americans to use words in different meanings, in different situations, social situations, of course, because of oppression and slavery. Okay, so that's a very, very important book. And the image you can see on the left-hand side is the main image of the book, first page, and it represents the god of signification. The god of signification is Eshu Legba, and is the trickster. He's the trickster because he uses words with different meanings, potential meanings. Okay, and that's something that Dante does also. Of course, there's no direct connection between Eshu Legba and Dante, but it's not my point. My point is that words, signs can be used with different meanings, not infinite meanings. That's something important, but different meanings, okay? Umberto Eco, we're getting closer to Dante, okay? Umberto Eco, 1993, wrote a piece. It was first, I think, a lecture, and it's on Dante and the Kabbalah. And Umberto Eco is about, when you read that piece, is about to discover the link with geomancy, but it does not, unfortunately. Well, unfortunately, maybe fortunately for me, because if I had found it out, I wouldn't be here to talk about it. So it's a very important book. All the work of Umberto Eco is absolutely splendid, of course, because it's not only high scholarship on the Middle Ages, especially the 13th century, is a major scholar of the Italian 13th century, but also, well, it doesn't necessarily mean anything because Tommaso de Aquina was in Paris and wrote in the Sorbonne. He was from, of course, Italy. But so it's a world. The Western Europe is a world of knowledge and scholarship at the time. And so Umberto Eco was a specialist of this period, but he was also an open mind. And so, as you know, he wrote things on James Bond, for instance. Yeah, absolutely. He wrote many pieces, very unusual, and he was a curious man. So he's my model. You have to be absolutely scholarly when you do research, but you have to have curiosity. So never forget that. Be a strong and serious scholar, but with this serious scholarship, then you can go to other places and discover things. Okay, 1994, another major book which has nothing to do with Umberto Eco. And I have to say, a little boring, but it's still an excellent scholarship. It's called Dante's Christian Astrology. Richard Kay compared manuals of astrology of the time, Michael Scott in particular, and the list of the lexicon, the list of words, vocabulary that you can find in those manuals of astrology, which were very common in the 13th and 14th century, with the Dante vocabulary in Paradise. And he finds overlapping, very large overlapping of lexicon, okay, of vocabulary. But the level of hermeneutics of Richard Kay is not necessarily at the level of Umberto Eco, less to say. Still, it's excellent scholarship and very useful, okay, extremely useful. I want to share something with you. Yes, you can't see it very clearly, but on the right-hand side, up, this is a book which is absolutely central for the study of geomancy. Thérèse Charmasson published this book in 1980, and it's a catalog, commented catalog of all the geomancy manuscripts known in the Middle Ages, from 1140 to, let's say, the beginning of printing, which would be beginning of the 16th century. Okay, well, more or less. The first printed geomancy manuals date from late 16th century. Okay, so more or less 100 years after the invention of printing. Okay, but it's a major book, and just to let you know, it's incredible scholarly book. And she was 25 when she wrote that book. It's just amazing. Anyway, it's a major source for me. I could not do anything without this book. So it's my Bible. Okay. All right, let's go. So first, there is a common epistemology between geomancy and what Dante is saying about his own poetics. So look at this site here. That's in Purgatorio. A famous one, actually, very famous. Well, everything is famous in the Commedia, but this one is important because it defines what he's doing. Okay. So what he says is that he's inspired first. Okay. Second, he notes, he writes. Okay. And third, which is the most important thing here, is signifying, which is incredible because it has to like an echo in Professor Gates' book. Of course, they have nothing to do directly, but anyway. So this word significando means that he is making signs to signify in English, but in medieval Italian means the same thing, which is to produce signs. Is not only writing, is making signs. Okay, so that's very important. So second, very important site also in the Canto 19th of Purgatorio. There's an explicit, totally explicit mention of this divination system. Okay, so I'm not making up anything. You can see that. When geomancers can in the East see their Fortuna Major, which is the sign of geomancy, very important one because it represents the sun rising, okay? Rising before the dawn along a path, which is, the correspondence is clear, and not even, you don't have to interpret anything. That will be darkened for it only briefly. A stammering woman came to me in dream. That's the second dream of Dante. Her eyes askew and crooked on her feet. Her hands were crippled, her complexion sallow. Okay? So, it's there. Not only it's there, but it's precisely there. Look at that. The mention of geomancy is exactly in the middle of the 7 cornices. Okay, I don't know how you call that stuff. Cornices, terraces. Okay, so it's in the second part of the first one. Okay, the first one is the slothful, the idle people. Okay, but it's not. The question is not that it's about the idle. What it's maybe, but it's the precise. The important thing is that it's in the middle of this part of the canticle, which is Purgatorio per se. Okay, Purgatorio in itself. Okay, why? Because before Purgatorio, the 7 cornices, you have ante Purgatorio. And then you have Eden, okay? The Garden of Eden. So there are nine steps, I would say. 7 in the middle, 1 before, and 1 after. And it's exactly the middle here of the Purgatorio as a canticle, okay? But it's also the middle of the canticle as a space, because Purgatorio is a mountain. So we're talking about the description of a travel, the climbing of a mountain. It's also in the middle of the full work, because it's in the middle of the middle canticle, but also, of course, there are 3 of them. So if you look at the middle of the second one, then it's the middle of the full work. And depends on how you count, but there's 9 steps in hell, and you have 9 steps in paradise. Okay, so this quote has been commented, but not so much. A lot of people have commented a lot of the gloss, 700 years of gloss. Okay, the majority of the commentators, not the majority, the vast majority, they think it's an astrology. It's an astrology mention, okay, reference, because Dante is talking about the skies, okay. So they just comment that it's a way to give a date to this moment in the travel. It's not only that. So, and they move on to other sets, of course. I don't believe that. It's impossible to have, knowing the work of Dante, to have this precision of location in the work without more than being decorative. It's not decorative. It's way more than that. So that's the point of departure of my work. Okay. Look at the incipit of the major work of a contemporary of Dante, Bartolomeo di Padua. Geomancy is the art of points which are arranged by lot, which means randomly, okay? But it doesn't think it's random. Well, we believe it's random, but actually they are inspired. You can see the word that is using by a certain divine inspiration, okay? At the discretion of the point finders, or of free will. I can't develop that, but geomancy is not supposed to foretell the future. It's supposed to give you advices. So just like meteorology, the weather, okay, the weather report, tomorrow it's going to rain. So it's up to you if you want to go out without an umbrella, okay? Should I go out tomorrow because I want to travel? Yeah, well, tomorrow there's going to be trouble in the streets because Mars is in the skies, and there's going to be trouble, war, fighting. So geomancy gives you this kind of advices, okay? Because they find when you ask the question, they find the figure corresponding to what you are asking. So how does it work? Excuse me. How does it work? Yes, well, before how it works, Bartolomeo of Parma, da Parma, is not so well known, and we know that Dante and him were patronized by the same family. They were contemporary, and they were both patronized by the Fieschi family. Okay, Dante mentions Alagia, who was the wife of Morello Malaspina, and she was a Fieschi. Okay, Alagia was a Fieschi. Okay, so they were very gentle to Dante. 1307 or 1308, as far as I remember. Okay, so he was living with them for a while. Okay, probably at the moment when he was writing the Commedia. There are two works unedited of Bartolomeo. Bartolomeo was active in 1285 in Bologna when Dante was in Bologna. Likely, we suppose he was dead. Okay. His main book is published in 1288, and there's another one, shorter, 1294. Okay. Bartolomeo invented a new vocabulary for geomancy. There are geomancers before him, but he's the first one to have a special vocabulary. And you'll see immediately why it's so important. First, puer and puella, there are two figures, two signs in geomancy. And before that, before the publications of Bartolomeo, they were, puer was linked to Venus and puella was linked to Mars. It didn't mean anything. There was something wrong in the system. So Bartolomeo decides to put puer, which means the boy, with Mars, and puella with Venus, because she's a woman. Okay? So that's something very important. It's puts the system in coherence, okay? But the most important thing is what you can read here. He gives a new name to the sign of Jupiter, and this name is Mons Excelsus. What does it mean? The highest mountain. The highest mountain. So what are we talking about? We are talking about Purgatorio, sacred mount. That's the word that Dante uses, okay? The sacred mount. He's the first one to say that Purgatorio is a mountain. Nobody before that ever said that. And after him, not really, either. And Jacques Le Goff, who wrote a very important book on Purgatorio, the birth of Purgatorio, coming from the 7th or 8th century, showing how the Christian Catholic theology is building a new conception between hell and paradise. Nobody before, no one ever said that Purgatorio was a mountain. He's the first one. And that's exactly the moment when Bartolomeo says that one figure is called Mons Excelsus. Okay. Last point, as important. Until Bartolomeo, you'll see the figures. Okay, so I just want you to focus on the lexicon right now. Before Bartolomeo, there was a couple of signs which were called Cauda Draconis, the tail of the dragon, and Caput Draconis, which means the head of the dragon. Okay, Bartolomeo keeps them because it's not one and not the other. We are talking about a system where you have an accumulation of meanings. Significando means that you create meanings for different in addition of what is existing. You don't reject what is existing. So those two figures, I will show you them. Show them to you. He invents new names. To be precise, two names: Arbor Alta, the highest tree, and the lowest tree. Arboreum could also mean the lower part of the tree, which would be roots. Okay, roots. Keep that in mind too. Okay, so high tree and low tree. This is the vocabulary that Dante uses in two of the main moments in the Purgatorio. First, the cornice of the gluttony. Okay, you have two of those trees there. True. Okay, and even more important, the tree of the Garden of Eden in the center of the Garden of Eden. And I'll show you if we have time that those two signs are there explicitly when he's talking about when Dante is writing about this Garden of Eden tree. Let's move. How does it work? You can read. Somebody can read that for me. We could try to work on that text. It's of course very difficult. It's a codex of 1288. So actually, that's the Summa. That's Summa from Bartolomeo. So you can see all those little lines on the left-hand side. Okay. So how does it work? First, you go to a diviner because you want to marry if you're a gentleman, you want to marry a lady. Okay. You don't know if it's a good choice. Maybe, maybe not. Okay. So you go to the diviner, well, to geomancer, the geomancer. And the geomancer has to know your the question. So the question is this this woman a good choice? Okay, so they ask the question. The geomancer, in a very calm setting, has to think about the question for the consultant, and then when he thinks about the thinking about the question for the consultant, he puts dots in the sand. So it can be on a tablet, it can be on the ground, and it can be on paper with, in this case, a pen, okay, and ink. Okay, so he has to think about the question, and thinking about the questions prevents him from counting the dots, which is something very important. So you think about the question, and then you put dots in the paper. Okay, you think about the question, you think about the question, and after a while, you just stop randomly. The idea is that the stars gave you a message through your hands, through your body. Your body and your soul are connected in the same person. And so when you think about a question, and when your hand is moving alone in a way, then the stars are answering your question. So that's the way it works. And so you can see 16 of those lines here. You do that 16 times. Then you cancel the dots 2 by 2. Okay? So at the end of the line, on the left-hand side, you find one or two dots. Okay? One or two dots. It's odd or even. So look, maybe I can, no, it doesn't matter. So you can see the shield just under the 16 lines. So the shield corresponds exactly. It's okay. Yeah, absolutely. Okay. Yeah, excellent. So look, for the ones who can, we have at the end of the first row, the first line, 2, then 1, then 2, then 2. This is what you get here. 2, 1, 2, 2. All right? The second set of 4 lines creates the second mother. The third series creates the third mother, and the last one, this one, creates the fourth mother. So those are the ones which are created directly from heaven for you, for your consultant. Okay? Now, you take the free line, the first line, and you put it in a column. So these guys here are the two daughters. They are just the transposition. If you have done some mathematics, maybe, probably, you know about matrix calculation. No, but it's not so hard. So each of those lines here become a column. So you have 4 of them, of course. 2, 2, 1, 1. Okay, so that's Fortuna Major here. Here, okay? Then you take those 2 and you make an addition. 2 plus 2, that's 4. 4 is even, so you put 2. Where is my arrow? You put 2 here because 2 plus 2 is even. 2 plus 1, that's odd. That's 3. So you put 1. 2 plus 1, that's 3. So you put 1. Okay? 2 plus 2, that's 4. So you put 2. Okay? So from those 2, you get a third one. And this one is called conjunctio. That's the sign of Mercurio. Mercury, Hermes. Conjunction. And it's exactly the same sign here because the calculation gives exactly the same thing. Okay? And you go on here doing the same calculation. It's an addition. 2 plus 2, that's 2. 1 plus 1, that's 2. 1 plus 1, that's 2. 2 plus 2, that's 2. So here we have populus. Populus is a very important sign. We'll see why later. Okay, so this is the system. Those 12 first figures correspond to astrology. 12 figures, 12 houses. From the first house of astrology, which is Aries. Yes, Aries, le bélier in French. So it's Aries, I think. Okay, so one after the other. And the last one will be Pisces. Okay, fish. Okay, so from here to here, you have 12 houses. Okay, 12 houses, which meaning corresponds exactly, excuse me, exactly to the ones of astrology. This is the 7th one, and it's the house of women and marriage. So what was my question? Should my consultant marry this woman? The answer is acquisitio. Acquisitio means it's excellent. Yes. She's probably rich, and she makes you rich. Okay? So marry that woman. Acquisitio is in the house of women here. Acquisitio is one of the 2 signs of Jupiter. So it's a sign of triumph. It's perfect. So do it. Yeah. So it's not enough. It's not only that, because you can have a lot of more interpretations that I won't enter into details. Anyway, I told you about the first ones, but those 3 guys here, they are not from astrology. They are the main important, they're new things from geomancy. They are absolutely specific. Absolutely. Thank you, Ambrogio. So they are specific. You can't find that in astrology. So the right witness is here, and the left witness is here. You make a combination, and then you find here the last one. It's the 15th, number 15th, and it's called the judge. So the first answer was excellent, okay, for your marriage. But this one is okay, not so good. It's good, but it's called Fortuna Minor, okay? It's called also Honor Extra, which means humility. You have to give up honor. You have to be humble, okay? So this marriage is okay. It's still a good sign, but it has its bad aspects, okay? So just to give you an example, I could, if I get fired from the Sorbonne, maybe I could myself to do work and make money with that, okay? So those are the 16 figures. 16 figures, well, okay, 16 figures. 16 figures, from the system I just showed you, there are only 16 figures. You can't make more than 16 figures. It's just impossible, okay? So those are the names. There are more names, but those are the most common names, okay? The one that Dante is using is this one, Fortuna Major, and it's here, and it's the sign of the sun. Okay, here. Okay, 2, 2, 1, 1. I can't really enter in details because the you know the how do you call that, the steps, it's not the good, the floors of one sign correspond to elements in medieval conception of the world: earth, water, air, and fire. Okay, but okay, we don't have time for that. So I just explained that to you right now. Okay, so I'm going to go faster. Okay, this is what is important here, is that it looks like a shield very much, and it's the vocabulary that was used sometimes to refer to this kind of charts. Okay, it looks very much like a shield that the soldiers were using, but also that the houses of aristocrats were using. Okay, so those are the shield. Okay. Another one, you can see that sometimes they used stars, because geomancy is a reflection of the stars. That's also why I chose the first image of Gustave Doré, because there's nice image of stars in the sky. Okay, so you can see that they used stars. Okay, in this case, the judge of the question is Amicio, and it's a very bad sign. It means that you're going to lose everything. You're not happy with that, but that's the way it is. But it's a menace. It's not actual. You can act. You have power. You have agency. It's just an image of the future that you have, of the question, but it's not, it doesn't cancel your free will. You take the advice, okay? But you're not forced to do it. A representation of the houses. 12 houses corresponding to 12 astrology houses. So when you're doing this chart, okay, you can transform or transpose this chart into this square, which is very, very common in astrology. Okay, in astrology you have that all the time. That's typical of the astrology charts. Here, the first figure is Puer, which is also called Belliger, the fighter. Okay, it's the boy, but it's also the fighter. Okay, and it's called also Masculus, which means a strong guy. Okay, and then you can. What's interesting with that representation is that it shows it's a cycle from 1 to 12, but you can see that 12 is just behind 1 actually. Okay, so the 12th one is supposed to be the enemies. So the enemies are never too far in geomancy. So that's the 12th figure. It's about enemies. It's exactly the same in astrology. They didn't invent anything about that. So you see the house 7, women and opponents too. The ones who are, it's not necessarily women who are opponents. No, it's not that. But it depends on the question. If the question was about, will I win the war? I'm about to go to war, and the question, will I win the war? So they will interpret the house 7 not about women, but about opponents. Okay? So there's an ambivalence, depending on what you want to ask. Okay? Very important what I'm showing to you right now, because you understand why it's so important to Dante. Okay, so planets are linked to those figures. The sun, as I told you, is linked to 2 figures. One is positive, the other is relatively negative, but both are pretty good. Okay, the 2 figures of Saturn are bad. Tristitia and Carcer, well, as you can see, Tristitia means sadness and Carcer means prison. So they are not good usually, but you can have interpretation. the two figures of Jupiter are good. One is even better than the other, acquisitio. Laetitia is good too. Laetitia is the sign of Jupiter, but it's also its name is also Mons Excelsus. Remember that, okay? Now, there's a way to interpret geomancy, which was rising at the time of Dante, and which was something new compared with astrology. Astrology is working with houses, but this was a new way in the 13th century to interpret a geomantic chart. And it was based on the interpretation of three signs. The first one being, for instance, on the 1 second and actually the ninth, which is the first niece. The second row, they are called the nieces. Okay, you have mothers, daughters, and nieces. Everything is female here. That's another issue. Interesting that it's a very, very female system. All the names of the systems in the system are women, mothers, daughters, and nieces. That's very strange because there's no generation with men. All those figures are created by women. Mothers, daughters, nieces. Okay? Sometimes they're called daughters, actually, the niece. Okay, so in this case, you want to interpret three figures together. For instance, the first triplicity is about the consultant himself. Okay, so what is his health? What is social situation, etc. And then you move to the other ones, and in this case, they have different meanings corresponding to different questions. Okay, it's more simple than the first one. And it was rising at the time of Dante, actually. So look at that. Look at the right-hand side, and then we'll move to the left. The first three figures you have here, if you take two of them, you'll find the third one. That's typical. Okay. Yes, I'm going to go fast. No. So if you take Barbatus, and then you put Barbatus plus Carcer, you'll find Damnatus. Look, 1 plus 1, that's 2, 2 plus 2, that's 2, 2 plus 2, that's 2, 2 plus 1, that's 1. Okay? That's the triplicity of Saturn. Saturn is the bad here. Saturn, Tristitian, Carcer. Okay? We have Carcer and Damnatus. Carcer and Damnatus is another name for Tristitia. Okay? So Carcer plus Damnatus makes Barbatus. Okay? Jupiter now. Jupiter, the two figures are Mons plus Acquisitio. Then it makes Puer. Okay? Just mathematical. So read the first canto of Purgatorio. What is doing Cato de Utica on this beach? He's not even Christian. Okay? So what is he doing there? Nobody knows. He's supposed to be a very brave man. He resisted Caesar, thank you. He resisted, he didn't want to abandon his ally. He was with Pompeius, as far as I remember. He didn't want to abandon that man. And that's all. Everybody says, oh, he's a good man, and so he's a good man, and so what? It's not the way symbolism is working. No, not at all. Look at the text. So what is the text? The text is describing Cato as a bearded man. That's what it is. He's described as somebody with long hair and a beard like that, with two. It's not only that he's bearded, he has two birds, beard, thank you. I always see beard like birds and beards, and so, excuse me. So, two rows like that. Look at Barbatus. That's what you have. And so, well, that by chance, Erwan Dianteill is crazy, is making things up, etc. No, look at the text. Just after that, description of the description of Cato. Okay, the source of Dante is exactly a description of a budded man. That's apparently the only thing that was interested the source. I can't recall it right now who was the source, but I can tell you. So look at the text. Who are you people who are coming from hell? It's not. We are not allowed to go out from hell. That's in the text. Okay. So how did you come out of this prison? All right. So technically, I can tell you that I get damnatus. Okay. Read the text.
Can I read it, or do you have it in the next slide? It says, long was his beard and mixed with white hair, similar to the hairs of his head, which fell to his breast in 2 strands. And then what he says is, who are you that up the blind river have fled the eternal prison?
And then you have the Dapati later. I can tell you.
Yes. Can the laws of the abyss be broken then, or has some new counsel been adopted in heaven that although damned you come to my cliffs?
It's crazy. I can tell you. So let's go on. So the full Antipurgatorio is made of the 8 triplicities of Mons Excelsus. Okay? And the last one, and that's one of the incredible discovery of this research, is the dream of the eagle. Why? Because when Dante is abducted by the eagle is Jupiter. It's not even hidden, excuse me. Jupiter is, he says that the bird of Jupiter is abducting him during his dream, during his sleeping, okay? And is abducting. Acquisitio, another name is comprensum intus, which means getting something outside. Okay? Comprensum intus, it's to acquire, it's to take something, which is exactly what's going on. He's taking Dante to the Mons Altus, and it's comparing it with 2 characters of antiquity. Ganymede, when you look at the text, the original text, is described as a kid. Okay? Second, the abduction of
Achilles. No.
Achille. Yeah, absolutely. So it's not the Achille of the
water.
No. It's before that, when he was a kid, a child. Look at the text. Then Mons plus acquisitio means, well, you have the prayer here, just directly. And it's not by chance. It's impossible, because now I have the 8 triplicities, and I can identify them in a text just like that. So it's a pattern, one after the other. The 8 triplicities of Mons Excelsus, the Mount of Purgatorio, they are in the text one after the other. It's like a rhythm, okay? It's like a scenario he's using, one after the other. Okay, let's go. That's just what I was. Good, perfect. So let's move on. Okay, just what I'm talking about. That you read it. Yes. Okay. Last one. Excellent. Why? Because it's not this time at the end of Antipurgatorio. That's the moment when it goes from Antipurgatorio to Purgatorio in itself. Okay. So what do we have? We have an angel, which, just like you can see, there are 3 steps, and the angel is sitting on the 3rd one, and is preventing people from entering too fast, too early into the cornices. Okay, so he's there with his sword, and the people from Antipurgatorio are waiting to enter the purgation. Okay, so what do we have in the text? Look precisely at the text. Do not elaborate anything. Be precise do a literal reading. Okay, that I can't elaborate on that. On the four kind.
Yeah.
Well, there are four kinds of meanings in Dante. I don't want to talk about that. It's impossible. Well, it should be the full year. Anyway, so he's describing the 3 steps. Okay, the 3 steps is an angel, and the 3 steps are: first one, it's white. Second one, it's perso. Nobody knows exactly what is perso. It's a color, but there's a lot of speculation on what is the color of perso. But with the third one, we know it's red, for sure. So among those 3, there are 2 figures of geomancy: rubeus and albus. Albus, it means white, candid, candido. Okay. First one, it's albus, first step. The last one is rubeus, red. Okay. And so, when you know geomancy, you're wondering what is the middle one, perso. So, perso, usually, when it's defined by Dante himself in another text, it's supposed to be colore misto di purpureo e di nero, deep and red and black. Okay? Which is something reddish, but deep red, going to violet, something like that. Okay? So, I went to Bartolomeo to look at the 3rd figure, which is conjunctio. What is the color of conjunctio? Well, the color of conjunctio is blavum. Blavum means blue, red, and violet. So you could say, well, okay, that's many, but what is the triplicity we are talking about here? Well, this is the triplicity of Mercurio, Hermes, the god of thresholds, and the angel. Angel means messenger in Greek. So at the moment when they are passing the threshold to enter the Purgatorio, the first cornice, what do you have? The triplicity of the angel, the triplicity of Mercurio, Hermes. So that's what you get. And look at the text. Is the metaphor that the angel is using is geomantical, about the signs is putting on Dante's forefront. Yes, you can, but if you have time.
7 P's he inscribed upon my forehead with the point of his sword.
Geomancy is the art of points. You remember that? Geomancy is the art of points. That's the vocabulary he's using precisely there. And so, no, but I mean, it could be, it cannot be random. It's just not possible. It's not possible. Simple. Yeah,
the 3 steps are, and the first step was white marble, so polished and shining that I was mirrored in it just as I appeared. The second was darker than purple, made of a rough, dry stone, cracked.
Look at the figure. Look at the figure.
That's another thing that you were saying. Cracked both lengthwise and across. So the middle color is also a figure in geometry that has this X pattern.
Yes, absolutely. So you can represent in some geometrical treatise, you have the X, which corresponds to the cracking.
Conjunctio.
Conjunctio, absolutely. And it's in the middle between both of them.
And the third, which weighs the other down, seems a porphyry to me, as flaming as blood spurting from a vein.
Rubeus, which is also another name is tela sanguinis. Tela sanguinis. You know what it means? Tela sanguinis. It means the bloody weapons.
Sanguinis.
Sanguinis.
So, of blood, yeah.
Yes. Tela sanguinis, the bloody weapon. Telum. Okay. Yes, I know. It's just that we have not answered the first cornice yet. It's another story. We are moving to something else. And the something else is not the reading with triplicities, it's the reading with the full shield. So 7 cornices, 7 seals, 7 shields, 7 judges.
Oh,
Each figure is the judge of a scene and the ascendant of the following. Pride and Fortuna minor. That's the first cornice. Okay, that's pride, and we're moving to that's the pride.
Yeah.
Look at that. From the first 4 ones, you get the judge, and the judge is Fortuna minor, which means humility, the abandonment of pride, the giving up of pride. So that's the last one. And so you'll understand. I just take the first one, the first cornice, because I've done that for all of them. Okay. So let's move on. First mother. How do I get the first mother, which is in this case Caput Draconis? Look at that. So I'm following the text and identifying the figures that show up one after the other. Okay. So what do we have on the right hand side? We have
the right-hand side being this one.
yes.
So this one is the Caput Draconis.
Caput Draconis, but it has another name. So that's why I'm so interested in it. Poi fumo dentro al soglio della porta. It's not even a transformation of the name of the figure, because the one name of the figure is Limen Intrans. Limen Intrans is just the translation of that. So
Bartolomeo of Parma adds as maybe not just himself, but in geomancy,
absolutely,
that figure has 2 names at least.
More than
sometimes
that.
More,
Yes.
More than,
yes.
But one is Caput Draconis, the head of the dragon, and the other one is the threshold of the door.
Absolutely. Not, it's the threshold, the entering the threshold, because there's going out through the threshold. And this is dentro al soglio. It's not just the soglio. It's not just the threshold. It's coming in the threshold, through the threshold, but inside, because cauda draconis means the opposite, the contrary, which is not going in, but going out, passing the threshold, going out. Okay, so it's not only that. Look at that. It's been a mystery for 700 years. Why is the path going in the first cornice moving like that? It's moving like a wave that flees, then doubles back. So actually, the French translation by a gentleman of the beginning of the 19th century was a revelation to me. Look how it translated it. The way to enter the first cornice is just like a serpent, just like a snake, because it's moving like a snake. And this is exactly the meaning of the dragonis, the head of the dragon. That's what it's meaning. Why? You're gonna say, but I mean, a serpent is not a dragon. Yes, it is. The dragon and the snake are in the Apocalypse exactly synonymous, and Dante uses that all the time. And all of the people at the time, they use serpent, the serpent of the Apocalypse, like the dragon, the dragon. So it's a confirmation. Okay. Second and third and mothers, we made our way through the needle's eyes, but when we were released from it, etc. So they are going out of this strange serpent path, and then, excuse me, they are like extracted from there. So the good figure is comprehensum foris, which means going out. For the word is there. Okay, so first mother, everything is white when they see the mountain. Okay, that's Monte, that's Mons Excelsus, and then they see a fourth figure, Candidus. Okay, so from uncertainty, because it's not so easy to find those figures. Don't think it's so easy to find them. No, not at all. But then you have a confirmation, or you don't have the confirmation. So look at that. right witness is caput. That's the end. Okay, so that's the end of this. So right hand side, the caput, the head of the dragon. No. Down. The first witness here. Okay, that's caput, and that's Puella. Okay, it's the sign of Venus. So what do we have? So come figura in sera in suggia. So I just mentioned that because it's a way to make figures in geomancy. When you use wax and you put figures on that, that's exactly what you say. And you can find that in Bartolomeo. That's the way you put figures you draw that. Okay, so I don't want to comment that too much. Then Drissa a testa, so that's caput appearing. Then you have the trembling star,
Of Venus.
Absolutely. So the angel appears like the trembling star, which is Venus. Okay. All right. That's over. Yes.
Let's
So
wrap it up so that we can ask you some.
yes, absolutely. So okay. I'm going to the conclusion. Okay. It's all right. I'm going to the conclusion. Okay. Maybe I can. What do you
With this one?
Yeah. Okay. So that's my conclusion. What is undoubtful is the intensive use of geomancy in the Purgatorio. I don't have the slightest doubt of his using. It's impossible to have this kind of patterns going one after the other like that. Second, it's very, very, very high. There's a high probability to have these 8 triplicities in the Antipurgatorio. And the fact that there are 7 judges is also a very, very, very high probability because it corresponds to the 7 cornices. Okay. And I didn't have time, but it would be another day or maybe next year. I don't know. Populus doesn't fit in the 7 judges. So it's the judge of the church in the Eden. So I can't tell you how I found out that, but it's another story. Okay, you read the book. Maybe the strict. It's very likely that there are triplicities of planets, as I showed you. Very likely that there's a correspondence between events and figures. Okay, events, narration, but which one are which one? That's the tricky point. Okay. And so I think I found out, but I can't be 100% sure that each figure corresponds to one event. I have to be prudent. And why? Because that's another story too, but there are 65,536 shields possible. Okay. So I have a database that I created myself of those 65,000 plus possibilities. And when you have the first figure and the last one, when you look at you find 512. So there's a lot to work on. Okay. And more research on Commedia is needed, of course. So I can tell you what would be the next steps, but just to tell you, but Ambrogio knows that in the Bartolomeo treatise, you have a method to find out if somebody is dead, is in hell, in Purgatorio, or in paradise. And he's the only one to give this method to understand where is the soul of the departed. So thank you very much. I've been told.